Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Chelsia Janise. I'm an assistant general manager here in San Bernardino. We know as Chuze Fitness, we are a growing company. We are an ever evolving, ever changing company. And the direction that we're changing in is, I think it's really important to understand that we're all like cornerstones in that change. And we're all very, very important voices that are necessary and needed for that change. So with that in mind, I want to start with a quote to kind of set the stage. Okay, so the quote reads, "A challenged world is an alert world. Individually, we're all responsible for our own thoughts and actions, all day, every day. We can all choose to challenge and call out gender bias and inequality. We can all choose to seek out and celebrate women's achievements. Collectively, we can all help create an inclusive world. From challenge comes change. So let's all choose to challenge." And that's a direct quote from the International Women's website. All right, first question I have, with International Women's Day being yesterday, March 8th, the theme was choose to challenge. In what ways have you or will you challenge gender stereotypes? So before we start with the second part of the question, I wanna highlight in what ways have you challenged gender stereotypes? Just within your role, within your position, just within your life, really. We can start with maybe hearing from Melissa.
First of all, I've personally witnessed stereotypes since the 70s. But let me add, I was fortunate enough to be raised by my grandparents, and they made it very clear that I could be whoever I wanted to be, and they've been encouraged my accomplishments all my life, very supportive. Last few generations have made great strides professionally. No longer is it typical to have a male doctor. No longer are most politicians male. No longer is the military viewed as a only male for many role models, such as fighter pilots. But when I was young, that was typical. So there's women leaders in every field. There used to be few or none. We do have some progress. So what am I doing? First of all, I celebrate and I support when a female's promoted, elected, selected. I knew personally in the past, those things were male dominated. So when I'm seeing females, I am particularly like, woohoo, because I've seen this. But I think we need to strip down stereotype. And what I would encourage people to do is let's strip it out of every profession. So when society makes fun or looks down at like a male nurse or a male teacher, that used to happen. The idea is to promote that every person can choose their life path. So we're all able to do that, which puts us together collectively and we all get supported that way. We've made great strides. Let's keep the momentum. It didn't happen overnight, but I think we're on the right track.
Thank you, Melissa. I love that. I think it's important to challenge it by having conversations, especially, like you mentioned, and just setting the stage for conversations like this. That's a really good way to challenge. I also want to hear from Jackie. Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about kind of the quote you opened with, I found something that you can't spell challenge without change. And if you're going to rise to the challenge, you have to be prepared to change. And I think that speaks to a lot of what Melissa's talking about, of some of the change that has occurred and the change that's going to need to occur. And I'm able to do that in my daily life. I'm single, I'm not married, I don't have children, and I'm almost 30. For a lot of people, that's challenging what the expectation is. I'm the breadwinner in my household. That's challenging what's occurring. And thankfully to Chuze, I have that opportunity. And being able to work with children every day and empower them to continue to be the change and see different perspectives. And, if you want to name your bike Purple Love and you're a boy, that's okay. If you want to ride BMX bikes and race them on the weekends and you're a girl, that's okay. And we want to be able to set that stage that anyone and everyone is welcome to be a part of this world that we're in, and giving everyone that opportunity to do that. And for us to be able to do that, we have to be the change. Because if we don't change, then our children are not going to be able to change. And our communities are not going to be able to change. And so we have to be willing to make those changes, to be up for the challenge, and move forward as a society and support other females in this as well. And I'm so thankful to have a team of females with me and you all on this call today. So thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. That was lovely. I think something that's very unique that Farrell pointed out to me before is that here at Chuze Fitness, we have a lot of women in leadership. We have a lot of representation with our gender, at least for just leaders in this company. And even like, I think at every club level, we have at least one female manager, which is amazing. You know, that's absolutely amazing. I know that it wasn't always like that in our other, you know, different professions and stuff. I want to know, I want to hear a little bit more about like challenging gender stereotypes, maybe in like your everyday, or let's just maybe talk about just here being at Chuze Fitness. Yes, we are very represented, but I want to know if anybody has ever experienced a moment where they had to really challenge that.
One way that we all challenge being in the workplace as a female where we're at in our positions is challenging ourselves to be confident in who we are as a woman. And in that leadership role, I think is a challenge for ourselves. Because I do believe, including myself, that there's definitely some confidence that has to, you know, we have to navigate as a woman in leadership just in general. You know, are we too strong? Are we too direct? Are we not direct enough? All these things. And I think something that we do to challenge ourselves in leadership is to be who we are as a person and just being comfortable and confident with our leadership style and who we are. And I love that Chuze is able to provide that for us in a lot of ways, but there's definitely times, you know, I was able to leave and come back to Chuze, and there's definitely some outside factors in other companies that are, it's mind blowing to see like how hard it is to be confident in who you are as a leader at different companies, and how hard it is to like navigate how you speak to people, when you speak to people, what you're saying to people, you know, what your body language is, all those things just because you're kind of female. For me, to answer that question, I guess, is that I feel like I challenge, you know, that stereotype just by trying my best to be who I am and challenging myself to be confident in that on a daily basis, which is extremely hard sometimes. But that's, I guess, how I challenge it.
Thank you so much. You brought up something which I think needs to be discussed also. You brought up identity and like having confidence in your identity. I think for all of us, yes, we identify as female, but I think that we have to consider that the challenges that we face are just going to be different just based on our own, you know, whether it's our racial background, whether it's our socioeconomic background. I think that we all have a challenge ahead of us where it's, you know, we present as female or we, you know, identify as female, but there's other layers to that kind of, I think that needs to, you know, kind of be discussed. I'll just kind of like speak to it a little bit. I think for myself being a female manager or a woman manager here in San Bernardino, I think that I've faced more challenges with the fact that I'm a Black woman, more so than the fact that I'm a woman. I've had different encounters with different members sometimes where they're like, oh, I want to speak with the manager. And I'm like, oh, absolutely. Like, I'm the manager. What can I do to help you? And it's like, no, like, I want to speak to where's the guy at? Or where's that other girl at? And it's like, I'm the manager. You wanted to speak to the manager, you know? So I think that that's something that when it comes to challenging stereotypes and challenging just like, you know, what we're used to seeing as like, you know, a leader or something like that, I think that just even us, you know, in our own identity, in our own person is just a challenge, you know, to that as a whole. You know, I think that a lot of times when somebody asks to speak with a manager, I'm sure you guys have all experienced, I've literally witnessed it with Jessica Rocca. Like, you know, I've had moments where I was a team member and they're like, oh, I want to speak with a manager. And Jessica Garcia was my manager. I'm like, cool. Hey, Jess, could you come to the front? And they're like, she's the manager? I'm like, she's the general manager. Yeah, you wanted to speak with her. So you know? So I think that that's something that like just us just being a woman and honestly us identifying as, you know, women of color for some of us is a challenge just as a whole. I don't want to assume, but does anybody want to speak to maybe that part of it also?
Yeah, I think I actually have an interesting perspective on this one because before 2017, I had long hair. So I looked very much more obviously female presenting. And it was really often that someone would be like, well, no, I want to talk to the male manager. Is there a man on staff who I can speak with? And after cutting my hair in 2017, it's very rare that someone's like, can I talk to the male manager? Because they assume by looking at me more often than not these days that I'm male. So I don't necessarily get that pushback. So it's been interesting to kind of see from both sides that when I had long hair, very quickly, no one wanted to hear what I would say, so much pushback. And now, more often than not, members, staff even don't really question so much what I have to say. It's more so just taking it at face value because they assume that, especially for newer members who are not familiar with me, that I'm a man. And at least that's the perspective that I've gained. Just watching the interactions with maybe female staff members versus when that person gets passed over to me, the change in tone, especially from male members more often than not. So it's been really interesting to be able to see and experience it. It's unfortunate that it's so prevalent, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, mine was very similar with Amelia, where my hair has always been short, so I haven't experienced that since, like high school. But you definitely get the different change of tone and body language, like even especially when you're trying to present yourself as, I'm definitely short, so I also have to like stand a little taller and like, hey, that's not tolerated. And they challenge it. They see you trying to be like a little more confident or masculine, and they'll sometimes give you that attitude of like, you're totally not a dude. And it's like, I'm not even trying to be that way. Just like Rocca was saying, like we're just within ourselves being confident, and this is how we have to present ourselves. Now that I have assistant managers, I have Brett, who's also gay as well. And then I have Steven, who's completely not. And even with having all of us on the team, they'll prefer Steven every time, even between us two. And that's just because he's that male figure within the gym. But yeah, I agree with Amelia. It's definitely a challenge to see how we have to hold ourselves for ourselves, but it also makes it more empowering and exciting to be able to be the change and to prove that regardless of how these people show up, like we're still going to be exactly the way we are, which doesn't match that energy that's negative.
The line of work that I'm in is very male dominant. I am probably one of the most girly girls that you'll ever know. I love the makeup and the pink laptop and the pink sparkly nails and rose gold everything. Very girly. And, in the line of work that I do, I'm challenged every single day with a male vendor or a male, plumber, or I don't see females, in that line of work. And I am challenged every single day, whether it's a roof leak, whether it's the plumbing, whether it's this chemical. And, they get me and they're like, I'm here to meet, Jessie, because Jessie, you don't know if it's male or female. And I'm like, I'm Jessie. Oh yeah, I called you out. Yeah, we have this leak, or, and they stop. And so it's just very interesting, that gender stereotyping role of the way that I look, or the way that, that I'm just a girly female and they're expecting someone else, or, they have asked me like, well, where's the guy, or where's, your boss, or so I don't know, that has very, much so been my everyday as I began my career here at Chuze.
I'm so glad that you spoke to that, because I can see that being something that happens probably daily, probably multiple times a day. And it can be really frustrating because it's almost like questioning your competence in the job. And it's like, you wouldn't hold the title that you hold if you weren't competent in that, if you didn't know what you were doing. So I just commend you for just being in that role and holding your own, you know what I mean? Like you come in and you're very confident, and that's something it can be kind of like off-putting for some men that aren't used to seeing that, or just some people. Honestly, we can just speak to just people as a whole. Sometimes it can be kind of like oh, she's in charge. You know what I mean? So I just commend you for speaking on that, Jessie. Thank you so much. Because I know I know it's probably all day, every day. But we can lead into the next question. Does anybody have anything else? Jess Garcia, yes.
Yeah, no, it led me to think about a lot of my background was before Chuze was retail. So I think, being a store manager in retail, you work at like a little boutique or something like that's kind of normal. Like it's a job that you think I would hold. And so I never really experienced anything like that until I remember a day at Rialto where I can't remember the exact situation that was going down, but the reaction is obviously, what stuck with me. Because it was a male member, and it was and when it came time to me having to come into action and kind of do something and say like I'm the general manager, I remember him turning around and looking at me and saying, you're in charge of this place? And I was like, yes, I am in charge of this place. And it's such a I hadn't ever experienced that, because the fitness industry does seem to be dominated by males, and you probably have to be this super fit tall model looking woman if you are in charge. And here I am, 4'9" little Latina girl, in charge of this gym. But it was wild, because I hadn't experienced that until that day. And I think a few situations followed that. Like you remember when, you have to step in and say, I'm the one in charge, and those looks that you get. And I think it's even a little bit more disheartening when it's a woman that's actually kind of like, oh, you're in charge. And it hits it cuts a little deeper almost than when it is a male having that reaction, because, we want to be in a world where we empower each other. And funny to say that, yes, I would be qualified to run a store because I sell earrings and bags, but I wouldn't be qualified to run a gym because it's the fitness industry and it's different. So it led me to think of that moment as well.
Thanks, Jess. I'm really glad that you spoke on that, because I remember a couple times seeing that. I'm just like, are you serious? But I think that I'll just kind of speak to just having been led by you, Garcia, and by Rocca. It gave me a level of confidence that I didn't necessarily have for my previous jobs, that you both are very much yourself. Garcia, you're very bubbly. You're very just loving and warm. And I'm just like, oh my God. And she's a freaking amazing manager. And so it was always just like this exciting thing. Yeah, I can be myself, and I can lead, and I can do it really well. And same thing with Rocca. I'm like, every single meeting, you're running the show, you're doing this, you're making decisions on behalf of an entire district. And it's just you're a woman, and you're very much confident, and you can be girly sometimes, and you're this, you're that, and you're playful. But when it comes time to do business, you're we need to get this done and this done and this done. And I'm just like, yes, Rocca, it's amazing to be able to experience just an amazing dynamic of very strong women and very strong leaders all encompassed into one. So I think that it's just, I know we keep going back to the challenging stereotypes, but just all of you in your roles and just in your person is a challenge as a whole. And it's kind of shaking things up. And I think that that's something that needs to be done in the fitness industry, because you're right. If you're not this pretty showgirl type model, you're kind of not really looked at as anything in the fitness industry. But all of us just very diverse backgrounds, and just we're all very beautiful in our person. And I think that that's able to really shine through more than just the appearance itself. So I'm just glad to be able to celebrate with all of you. But we can lead into the next question. So I want to know, what led you all to initially apply here at Chuze Fitness?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. So, mine was perhaps a little bit different story. I was, and I'm happy to share, newly into a separation and divorce. When I applied, and kind of settling into my new role as a single mom to a 2-year-old. So it was, just a kind of time to restart my career. I had just moved down to San Diego from Los Angeles, and it was terrifying. And so there was an opening, so I applied. And I came in with Chuze when we had, we just opened our 3rd location. So imagine how long ago that was. So I came in though, as a group exercise instructor and personal trainer, and immediately, said, wow, this is very, very different from what I've experienced, in my life in the last 20 something years, as a participant in the fitness industry. So definitely a very different vibe. I kind of worked my way through the group exercise department. And what I will say about group exercise is that it is a very comfortable place for females. It is very female driven group exercise, both, instructors and leaders and a lot of participants. So it is, for the most part, a safe space for females, and for advancement. Where I think that things got a little more challenging, for me and for many of us, is as we continue our journey and make our strides and find ourselves in different roles and sitting at different tables and more executive type tables. That's when it's a very interesting phenomenon. That's when all of a sudden our confidence goes from, I've got this, like I can take on anything, you throw anything at me and I know this inside and out, to potentially, is what I have to say truly valuable? Is should I not jump in because the grown-ups are talking, kind of thing, and even at a place like Chuze, which I will say is the most tolerant, accepting and comfortable and safe space I have ever encountered in the fitness industry, I will say that as women, it feels a little bit like that's where the challenge comes, is when it's time to make your voice heard in a predominantly male room on a predominantly male table. Then you get thrown for a loop, and I have found that to be my greatest challenge, I think.
Thank you, Ani.
Of course, thank you.
Julia, starting with you, darling. I just want to know, just you holding the position that you hold, and you with your experience here at Chuze, have you experienced any gender biases or any biases just as a whole?
I'm trying to think of really a specific scenario, and I think what I can really speak to are just biases that I experience internally. And I think that, Ani spoke to this a little, that, a lot of the leaders that we have in our company, are so open and encouraging and ask for your thoughts and actually value your thoughts and opinions. And it just to have that, just that internal insecurity about like something as easy as like, I feel like I can't say no. Like, I feel like I have to agree to this because, the other people in the group think it's a great idea. And I feel less like being like, have we thought about this? Or, I'm not on board with that because of these reasons, and feeling comfortable with myself and confidence in being able to do something that I know that I have knowledge of and that I have experience with and that I've been through myself, and just being able to just have that confidence, even though it's there with the leaders already. It's just, and I don't know why it's there. And it's just something that you have to just constantly fight against, and really kind of fight that like inner bully that you have, and be able to be like, no, I'm gonna speak up. And it would even be to the point where like I would be in a meeting and I would like send a text to a coworker and be like, have we thought about this? And then if they say it's a good idea, then I'll be like, okay, excuse me, I wanted to comment on this. It's just like needing that like extra encouragement where it's like, in the back of your mind that like, this stuff. And so I think that I feel very validated today with hearing that I thought this was just an insecurity that just I had as a person, and just hearing that other women have experienced this in different situations. It almost gives me like an extra dose of courage to be able to speak up. And, I'm someone that is a little bit more quiet in a group of people that I don't necessarily know. And then once I feel comfortable with everyone, it's like all over. I'll just give my opinions left and right, but it just takes a bit to get there. And I think that's it. I could just go on, but I think those are just fighting the internal bully in my brain about what I can and can't do. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you, Julia. And again, I think that just you having the confidence to push past that now is golden. But you're very, very relatable in what you said, sending that text, just seeking that extra level of validation, that extra level of comfort, oh yeah, you're right. I am right. I can say this, I think that that's something that's more so unique to women. I don't think that that's always an experience that men have. Obviously, I mean, I don't know, I'm just going based off of assumptions, but I think that you being able to similar to Rocca, being able to push through that challenge is necessary. And it's yes, use your voice and use your opinion, use your input, because it's valued. So thank you. So I don't want to take too much of our time here, because I know we're bosses, so I don't want to take your whole day, but I kind of want to end with maybe just something that anybody would like to say to maybe the next woman in leadership to be promoted, or maybe somebody that, that may be watching that's struggling with just their own experiences with stereotypes, biases, just within their own person. Does anybody want to speak to, maybe have a little minute to just encourage the next woman that might be listening, or anybody that really resonates with this? You can raise your hand.
All right, thank you. I'm really glad that you asked this, because I feel like I have an interesting seat at this table, because I'm really glad to hear that everyone has talked about the balance that they have to try to find between being this really nice and bubbly person and then also being very direct. I'm privileged enough to not have to find that balance, because I don't have it in me, really. I stay on this baseline of direct and intense, and I don't really deviate from that. And the reason why I call it a privilege is because when I am direct, it's accepted. And when I am bubbly and nice, it's a surprise, but it's a nice surprise. Whereas on the other hand, when you are a bubbly person and then you become direct, it's not always a nice surprise to people. It's not always welcome. And for me, I don't have to justify why I'm direct. It shouldn't have to be that there has to be a reason. You should just be able to express and be intense and direct as you'd like to be. But that's not always the case. So to answer your question, if I could give one bit of advice to any new women leaders, whether it's in our company or anywhere, be yourself and be genuine. If you have a seat at the table, you have a voice at the table. Don't be afraid to use it. There's a reason why you have that seat. You've been given the opportunity, and the people at that table should empower you to use your voice, as opposed to diminish your voice or silence you. And if you find that when you're at that table and you speak your mind, the other people who are on your team try to make you lower your voice or take away from the points you have to make, that's not the right table to be at.
Thank you, Amelia. Thank you so much. That's very true. And I think that honestly, when leaving a table that is not for you, challenge that table before you leave it, because that kind of leads to that lasting impression, oh, well, they have this to say. So thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate that.
I would say for me, it's finding others to lean on, that you don't have to do this by yourself. Find your boss ladies to be in with you, to share your struggles, find peace, give each other support. Yes, we want to be strong, independent women, but we're not going to be able to do that if we're not in this together. And by doing that, it's lifting each other up. And so I'm thankful that I've got my women who are in this with me, that we can be in this together and be able to all sit at the table. and not lean up against the wall, but we're truly leaning into the conversations. And like Amelia said, you know, making a point, being there, being proud of it. So for me, it's really being a part of that change as a collective unit. And again, it's all going to go back to, if we're able to do that for each other, our children, the youth is going to see that example, and it's going to get better. You know, as much as Melissa has seen so much in her time so far on this earth, we're not going to be able to get everything to where we want it to be in our time on this earth. It's going to be up to the next ones. But if we don't make that change now, and we don't support each other now, then we're never going to be able to get there. And you want to be proud when someone else gets a seat at the table, you know, and that's what I would lead with, is really just supporting one another and continuing to level up.
Thank you, Jackie. Yes, level up in every sense of the word. Well, I mean, that's pretty much all the questions that I had. I wanted to take a moment to thank you all for being open to having this conversation. This is a new space for me to navigate. This is a new table that I'm sitting at. Just me being a Black woman, I'm met with, you know, just different challenges every day. But I feel very encouraged to be myself, and I feel very supported to, you know, be assertive when necessary. And, you know, yes, I'm going to be met with a little bit of pushback just because I'm going to be, you know, seen as like the angry Black woman if I have an opinion on something. But I feel very supported and very uplifted in the fact that what I have to say has value. And I think that you all have a very unique approach to that journey. So I'm just very excited to be able to have this conversation with some really amazing leaders. And, you know, gender aside, we're leaders, and we're markers for change. And I think that every single day, just like I mentioned earlier, just the struggles that we may face, yes, they may be different, but the energy that we're facing it with is valued, you know? And so I think that just having this conversation with you all, it kind of brought a new perspective to myself, to just my mind. And it's allowed me to really kind of solidify my own confidence and just like, yes, I do deserve to be at a table with all these amazing leaders and all these amazing women. And I do deserve to have this conversation with all of you. So I hope that you all have felt that from this. This has been something that's super, super amazing. I can go on for days about how exciting it has been for me. But I just truly appreciate you guys just taking the time out of your days to have a conversation that's, you know, needed. And I think that this is something that we're going to continue as a company, and it's not going to be continued without you amazing ladies. Thank you again. I'm going to thank you a million times. I'm probably going to get an email from me thanking you, but yeah, I think that that's a good way to end. I think that we all have had a very strong stance in this journey. We've been able to, you know, celebrate Women's History today, and by making Women's History, this is the first time that Chuze Fitness has been able to do something like this. So you all are part of history today. But yeah, I think that we can end on that note if you guys are okay with that. If everybody's feeling heard, does anybody, any last, any? No? Okay, cool. Thank you, ladies.